Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stew again, and we are back on that big, beautiful freeway, finishing up our 500-mile road trip to check out the California High-Speed Rail Phase 1 plans and right-of-way. In the last video, we covered the Merced to Bakersfield initial operating segment. If you haven't seen that or the Anaheim Bakersfield video, please make sure to check those out as well. A quick word on the iOS, that is the part that the California High-Speed Rail Authority is currently trying to build and operate. That's 171 miles. The other roughly 330 miles of California High-Speed Rail Phase 1 from Los Angeles to San Francisco is not funded, and no one knows right now when or if it will be built. The part we're going to look at in this video, Central Valley to San Francisco, is the next planned part after the iOS, so keep that in mind. Since we finished the last video in Merced, we'll start there at the downtown station. We're leaving the future Merced station site situated between 15th and 16th Street, heading to the southeast out of town. On the way, say goodbye forever to the In-N-Out on MLK, since the cruel villains of the California High-Speed Rail Authority plan to nuke that. Let's hope Merced won't be cursed. Then the California High-Speed Rail tracks will be next to Union Pacific tracks along State Route 99 for about 7 miles before curving south near the SR 99 La Grande exit. After that, heading south for 7 miles through the Central Valley Y, the section of the Y from Merced to about 3 miles north of State Route 152 will be built for the iOS, where the path curves west from there to head for the coast is where the new segment starts. That will hook up with State Route 152 a few miles east of the junction with State Route 59. At that junction, the freeway curves southwest, but California High-Speed Rail will continue straight and head off to cross the San Joaquin River. 10 miles to the west, the right-of-way hooks up with Henry Miller Avenue, which is 3 miles north of State Route 152 and runs through farmland that used to be swampland. By the way, I apologize, the camera is pointed in a northerly direction. I got it in my head before leaving that the route was on the north side of the road, but it's actually on the south side on California High-Speed Rail maps. Now, you may not find the mention of swampland relevant, but this bottomland is now home to many wildlife refuges, preserves, and various other types of units that set aside land for wildlife because so much of the previous natural area was destroyed for agriculture. One of those is the Los Baños Wildlife and Waterfowl Management Area, the far south side of which is on the right here. The reason it's worth mentioning is that the tracks will not only be on viaduct here to fly over the swamps, but they're also planning on having the train run through a shed to protect area birds. The route will then curve around the small town of Santa Nella to the north, narrowly missing the only remaining Pea Soup Anderson's restaurant. They better leave Pea Soup Anderson's alone. That and the Merced In-N-Out would spell certain doom for the project. Here we are now a few miles northwest at the California Aqueduct looking north. 1 mile from this vantage point, the California High-Speed Rail tracks will cross the scene and head into the Diablo Range on the left. Initially, tracks will be above ground, curving into a canyon before heading underground into a 13-mile tunnel under the range and Pacheco State Park. Unfortunately, my GoPro was acting up and I was having a difficult time activating it around San Luis Reservoir, but you catch a sliver of it here. California High-Speed Rail tunnels will have to go around this sizable reservoir, which is part of the State Water Project. As we crest the Pacheco Pass, the tunnels will cross under the road here at the junction with Dinosaur Point Road and Shadow State Route 152 from underneath for about 4 miles. Descending State Route 152 along Pacheco Creek toward Gilroy, you can see why tunnels are necessary here. A little further downstream, still on State Route 152, will be the West Side Tunnel Portal. You may have seen this area previously in California High-Speed Rail renders. The right-of-way will mainly be on viaduct through here to avoid disturbing Pacheco Creek and its tributaries. High-speed rail will remain on the other side of the canyon from the road for 3 miles. At the Casa de Fruta exit, tracks will start coming in from the left on viaduct, crossing the creek and the road, and entering a mile-long tunnel into the hill on the right. On the other side of that hill, near the village of San Felipe, tracks will emerge from the tunnel on the right, again on viaduct, hooking to the north in the far southern reaches of the Santa Clara Valley. That will continue on the other side of San Felipe Lake here and then into Gilroy for the first stop of the segment. Tracks will proceed on viaduct until reaching a maintenance facility near the intersection of Bolsa Road and Bloomfield Avenue. Right where the alignment meets the US 101 freeway, the California high-speed rail right-of-way joins Union Pacific tracks. UP will retain 2 tracks to Gilroy Station and then 1 all the way to Redwood City. California high-speed rail and Caltrain will have 2 dedicated passenger tracks from Gilroy north, with 3 short 4-tracked sections between San Jose and San Francisco. Freight traffic north of San Jose is light, but does extend all the way to San Francisco to serve the port. Gilroy is a city of 60,000, and I know I just gave Hanford crap in the last video for having a population of only 55,000, but I think there are some differences here. First of all, Gilroy is 30 miles from San Jose and 75 from San Francisco, so commuting from Gilroy north is a viable use case. Second is that Gilroy's station is in its downtown instead of in a field. Third, the Santa Clara Valley is running out of real estate, and Gilroy is one of the places that still has it. One problem for Gilroy is that the high-speed rail station site will consume nearly all of the available land in downtown Gilroy, although the city does have some development plans for existing station parking. The historic station will stay and the platforms will be reconfigured. The high-speed rail station concourse will be elevated above the tracks, similar to the existing Millbrae station, which we'll investigate later. Heading out of the station to the north, we experience Gilroy's walkable downtown area, although it's only 4 blocks long. Old Gilroy Street at the north end of the station site will be closed to traffic. However, it may surprise you to hear that many at-grade crossings between here and San Francisco will remain as they are. North of Gilroy, next to the future right-of-way, we will experience a sampling of these crossings, starting with Los Animas Avenue. These at-grade intersections will feature quad gates to prevent traffic from going around lowered gates. The speed limit for the train will be 110 miles per hour. Next is CAHSR Avenue, and lastly, Buena Vista Avenue. As you can see, no crossing is too small to keep. A total of 29 at-grade crossings will remain in the 30 miles between Gilroy and San Jose. Some more of that view running through San Martin north of Gilroy. The question was posed in the comments of the last video about what it would take to grade separate this section in the future. The difference between the blended alternative chosen and the grade separated alternatives that were rejected is about $10 billion in 2021 dollars. I was running a little behind at this point, so I hopped on the US 101 freeway and headed into San Jose. I really wanted to take Monterey Highway into San Jose, but I just didn't have time if I was going to make it to San Francisco before dark. So I did some renders to make up for some of the video shortcomings on this one. This is the south side of San Jose heading north. Due to some unaltered geometry, the last 5 miles into San Jose Diridon Station will be slow. Diridon is a major service junction hosting Caltrain, ACE, Amtrak, and VTA Light Rail. The historic Southern Pacific Station is still in use. For the arrival of California high-speed rail, flyover concourses will be added like at Gilroy. This is meant to improve circulation. The overhead concourses in the future will act as entrances. and the existing underground concourse will handle exits. While at the station, I had the pleasure of seeing the new Caltrain Stadler KISS train set 2 in fact, albeit not in motion. I look forward to riding those if I do an update of this trip next year. It's expected that BART will join the aforementioned services at the station site sooner than later, and almost surely before California High-Speed Rail gets there. There is denser housing and mixed-use development on the west side of the station, but surprisingly not much on the east side. The station is 4 blocks from downtown San Jose and connected to it by the VTA Green Line, but also somewhat cut off from it by the State Route 87 freeway. San Jose does, however, have big plans for the area between the station and the freeway. The route then continues north, passing close by San Jose Mineta International Airport, which is oddly disconnected from area transit. 6 miles closer to San Francisco, I caught up with the right-of-way on the Central Expressway, although the sun was not my friend this day, basically from here on out. Again, I needed to get back on the 101 freeway to get to San Francisco before it got dark. To make up for it, I have more renders for parts I intended to cover. This is more Central Expressway and Alma Street next to the Caltrain right-of-way through Mountain View. One challenge in this San Jose to San Francisco section is that California high-speed rail trains will run on the existing Caltrain right-of-way more or less unaltered. The biggest piece of work will be a vehicle storage and maintenance facility 30 miles northwest of here in Brisbane. This means contending with around 40 at-grade crossings in the 47 miles between Diridon and San Francisco 4th and King, many of which will likely never be resolved. I've concentrated a lot on the lack of grade separation, but there are areas where that work has already taken place, like this 6-mile stretch through the cities of Redwood City, San Carlos, Belmont, and San Mateo. Rolling with the grade separation theme, I visited downtown San Mateo, which in California high-speed rail lore is the place used for the quad gate example render. These crossings will probably never go away. The right-of-way is highly constrained here and there is a fair amount of foot traffic. It calls into question just how fast they're going to be able to safely run through areas like this. San Mateo is also a great example of a walkable space. They just so happened to have some sort of market night going on while I was there, and lots of people were out enjoying an evening of the road being closed. Next up is Millbrae. I got next to the tracks on the way, including passing the Burlingame station where the guy managed to illegally build an apartment for himself inside the station during its renovation. But wouldn't you know it, my GoPro battery died as soon as I went to record it. Just wasn't my day, or perhaps the curse of the Merced in and out is already at work. But anyway, you get a render instead. Millbrae will be the only California high-speed rail stop between San Francisco and San Jose. This is a joint Caltrain and BART station, which is adjacent to San Francisco International Airport, which also has a BART station. California high-speed rail here, BART to SFO, and off you go. This station has the concourse above the platforms design that will be echoed eventually at Diridon and Gilroy. What this view from the escalator will look like in 30 years is up in the air. Originally, California high-speed rail wanted an entrance plaza and a bunch of parking. The city of Millbrae wants to say to hell with you to California high-speed rail and build mixed use. California high-speed rail came up with a less stupid alternative to try to placate the city and still accommodate station expansion. The litigation related to that dispute was still ongoing as of last month. Where this escalator is now is about where the California high-speed rail island platform might be, with 2 additional tracks to the left. By the way, if you have any doubts that freight runs this far north, this platform here will continue to be for Caltrain, and this is the elevated concourse. There is a lot of development in the immediate area, some by BART. El Camino Real is a constraint to the west, same for US 101 to the east. Height is constrained by the airport, but it looks like a few square blocks around the station will end up as transit-oriented development. 4 miles north on US 101 and we're rounding the curve to Brisbane Lagoon. Beyond that, on the left is the location of the maintenance facility where San Jose to San Francisco trains will be stored overnight. From there, the right-of-way passes through a few tunnels in order to navigate the hills of San Francisco. Here I'm on the double-decker portion of Interstate 280. This was probably the most nerve-wracking part of the trip because my luck wasn't great that day, and this type of freeway collapsed and killed 42 people during an earthquake in Oakland across the bay in 1989. The Caltrain right-of-way comes in from the right, and then the freeway is actually elevated above the tracks here for about a mile. Then Interstate 280 ends at King Street in San Francisco next to the 4th and King station. My plan was to follow the route of the proposed downtown extension tunnel to Salesforce Transit Center, but that failed after I merged when I shouldn't have and ended up stuck in a left-hand turn lane for 3rd Street instead of 2nd. But the route I took was fairly close, and I did end up on 2nd Street eventually, which the DTX will utilize the rest of the way into Salesforce. On its west side, the station is tucked behind a block of otherwise unassuming buildings, so there's no clue it's even there until you turn down this little alley. But then there it is. It reminded me of Melbourne, Australia, with its web of one-way, almost back alley streets. The parking structure across the way that I wanted to park at was closed, so I got to wander around a bit, but eventually I made it to the park on the top of the station. There are outside express elevators that take you right to the park without having to enter the building. It's one of the more beautiful contemporary spaces I've had the fortune to experience. You'd think it would feel out of place, but it actually feels quite at home among the various towers of downtown San Francisco. Looking over the edge, you almost expect water to be flowing down there on the street instead of traffic. The place was oddly empty for 7:30, although it was the middle of the week. I think maybe a dozen other people were up there with me, but trust me, I'm not complaining. It also wasn't quite as empty as the video implies. I purposely avoided filming people. Some of the buildings in the area are directly attached at park level. I know where I'd be going on every lunch break. But you're not here for the park, you're here for the connection to California high-speed rail, so let's head downstairs and check the place out. One level below the park is the expansive and extremely empty bus depot. While I'm sure there will be more activity once Caltrain arrives, this place has a lot of empty bus bays, a few dozen. On this floor, you also interact with the giant sign in here that says inspirational stuff like, "Let's voyage into the new America." Don't get me wrong though, it is a cool sign. Coming down to ground level, it was just me, the security guard, and the guy that passed me on the escalator. I know what the security guard was doing there. I know what I was doing there. No idea what the escalator guy was doing there. Caltrain and hypothetically eventually California high-speed rail would come into the station below ground level, and that is currently inaccessible. Part of the building is actually being utilized. The local bus depot across 1st Street is active, although there doesn't appear to be anyone on the bus. Of the non-car traffic I saw in the area, the large majority was people walking. The main transit corridor of the downtown area is Market Street, 4 blocks away, so there is some question about how that will work out in combination with the station here. A subterranean walkway between Salesforce Transit Center and a nearby BART station was nixed not too long ago. There are also long-term plans to build a second tube under San Francisco Bay that would hook up with this station, but they have to get the $8 billion tunnel between here and 4th and King built first. San Francisco has been facing economic challenges, particularly in the downtown area. However, given the amount of time that is bound to pass until California high-speed rail could possibly arrive, things could very well rebound with the city and developers looking to densify the area even further. But we made it to San Francisco. It was a long and challenging second half of the second day of my trip. After a harrowing night at the Motel 6 in Vallejo, which was lit up like a prison, I spent some time in Sacramento getting footage of the Sacramento Valley station on the third day of the trip. I was going to document the Merced Sacramento section of Phase 2, but I got burnt out on driving through the Central Valley, which is an easy thing to have happen. So I headed home, gathering footage that may be useful at a later date along the way. I also got stuck in Lodi again, but that's a tale for another time. Until next time, I'll see you on that big beautiful freeway.